Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Welcome to part 13 of my review of Masks of Nyarlathotep for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition by XIII. In this video I'll be covering part 2 of chapter 7, China. It will encompass the sidetrack scenario, the Demon Cabinet of Mr. Lung, a gentleman of business where the investigators finally get to meet the diabolical Ho Fang, as well as the Dark Mistress and Shanghai Museum. First up we have a brief sidetrack scenario. It's been designed to be a respite against the machinations of Nyarlathotep, and if they are successful there's much they can learn. Mr. Lung is a practitioner of Chinese magic and astrology, and has offended a rival, Li Chu, and harmed his business. Li has decided to get his revenge by unleashing a cat demon upon Mr. Lung, in order to not only steal his possessions and property, but also his customers. Mr. Lung has determined via astrology that a demon is coming on a certain day, and he is prepared to face it. He understands that it will take an outlandish form as they are devious, and will be unsurprised to discover that it took human form. He's taken the precaution of cancelling all of his regular customers, as a demon would be bad for business. As chance would have it, on the day the investigators decide to pay him a visit, it is the day that a visit from the demon has been foretold. After this intro, we go into the dramatis personae of the chapter. First up is Mr. Lung, the demon-haunted astrologer. When the investigators arrive, he is convinced that they are there to escort his soul to the underworld. He will be polite but plotting to destroy them. In an effort to buy time, and if he is put on the spot, he will confess the whole story, still believing that they are there to take him. We also have Wu, the cat demon. Disguised as a noisy Siamese cat, it will transform into a snarling 250-pound monster feline with gnarled glowing claws and eyes that flash and smoke. Okay, so then we move on to the house of Mr. Lung. He lives on the north bank of the Wangpu. It is a small ground floor apartment of a 3-storey building and has 6 rooms. One of the rooms was previously a storage area, however he's turned it into his demon cabinet. The front door looks like it has been freshly painted red, and there are 2 wooden plaques either side of it, covered in strange symbols similar to Chinese script. Anyone with the right skills can identify the wood of the plaques as being from a peach tree, which a successful occult roll will determine is important in building a tofu, a ward against spirits and demons. Those who can decipher the script can identify them as magic words, with the second roll identifying the left-hand one as saying the God of Thunder orders and the right hand saying the death of spirits. Surprisingly, Mr. Lung's wards actually work, as any supernatural creature trying to enter have to pass a hard power roll with failure preventing it from getting in, though they can get in via the window, which Mr. Lung seems to naively have overlooked. These plaques are common during Chinese New Year. It has an aside which talks about the actual craft that Mr. Lung practices. In line with common Chinese belief, he practices an astrology that claims one's destiny is fixed in the heavens from birth, with a 12-year cycle of animals. His particular branch is Zhu Wei, or Purple Star astrology, and it is incredibly difficult to fathom as it has many factors. His skills are prized and he is regularly sought after. The next part is called the Cat on the Threshold. Outside of the house is a Siamese cat, yowling to be let in, and it will go to the windows and doors making a racket until someone does so. If Mr. Lung is asked about it, he will say he has never seen it before and assumes it to belong to a neighbour. He won't suspect it as a demon as he believes the investigators to be the ones who have come for him. It makes a point of mentioning that the investigators could have gained Bast's favour in Egypt, and the cat will be incredibly friendly with them, otherwise hissing at them and dodging out of the way of any affection. After they've knocked, there'll be no answer, though listening will reveal someone inside. Knocking a second time, we'll see the door opened by a small man dressed in a purple silk robe with matching cap. He will look surprised as he expected the tofu to have driven them away. If they explain their reasons for visiting, he will invite them in, confident that his other wards will stop them. In order for Wu the cat demon to enter, it needs to pass a hard power roll and an opposing dex versus Mr. Lung. He isn't keen on cats, and it is one of the reasons Li Chu chose one for revenge. If Lung passes, he stops it. If Wu passes, he has managed to dodge him and get inside. Mr. Lung does, however, have other defences lined up, each more powerful than the last, with his greatest weapon being the cabinet in the back room. It talks about the difficulty involved for the keeper in introducing each defence casually but observably, but not tipping off the players as to what is going on too early, while also making the point that if Wu the cat demon is repulsed 3 times, it is banished from the house for good and Mr. Lung is safe unless another demon is sent. Mr. Lung has various charms hung strategically in the entrance hall, made of bronze and peachwood, which he will try to tempt the investigators to look at. They depict miniature animals and repel with a power of 55. The room is perfectly positioned to follow the tenets of Feng Shui, with partitions and screens set up strategically due to the idea that demons can only travel in straight lines. Mr. Lung will be surprised when the investigators pass these without issue. For Wu, it has to beat a power of 60. Those who pass an occult roll will understand the significance of the feng shui here. The next line of defence are tiger scrolls which dangle from the ceiling like flypaper, with an occult roll identifying that they are thought as powerful protectors. They have a power of 70 to get past. After this is a brazier of burning slippers. This stands towards the rear of the living room near his bedroom. The slippers are well used and made of silk. Mr. Lung will only light them if the previous protection seems to have been breached. They have a power of 75. The smell of them burning is overpowering, which a failed con roll will cause the investigators to retch, raising Mr. Lung's hopes that his defences are working. He will, however, become increasingly bewildered as they walk past his protections. Each defence is noted on this map. Next we move on to the back room. He has moved some of his furniture here so as to lure demons in, as they must enter by their own will. The room is strange looking with no windows, and the walls and back of the door being covered in black drapes embroidered with stars. An occult roll will determine that they are the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac. The centre of the room holds a table with 2 chairs, which Mr. Lung will usher the investigators to. A sword made from threaded Chinese coins hangs over the chair an investigator is shown to. He will go ahead and calculate the Zhu Wei horoscope for the investigator. The sword is another line of defence that has a power of 80 to overcome. If it is clear that the sword hasn't worked, he will stand up and pull out fistfuls of cash, dumping it on the table in front of the investigators. These are hell banknotes, which cost a pittance to buy, but are worth a lot to demons and spirits. It actually looks like regular money until inspected, and Mr. Lung will go ahead and set fire to it, which gives it a power of 85. If this, as it should, fails, then he will run for the door, though he can be tackled. If he gets out, he will pull a cord hanging by the door, which will cause the drapes to fall, revealing that the walls and rear of the door are covered in mirrors of different shapes and sizes. He will cackle wildly and lock the room. This is Mr. Lung's demon cabinet. Chinese demons are wary of mirrors and means that they have to resist a power of 90 each round or be drained of D3 magic points, being dispelled to the underworld when they hit 0. They can only escape by convincing someone outside of the room to open the door. If Wu gets trapped in here, it will begin howling in a way that sounds exactly like a human baby, something Siamese cats can do. This trap can actually harm humans, with a hard power roll being required each round or suffering the loss of 5 power points. Once they hit 0, they are reduced to a shriveled husk that smells damp. Of course, humans, unlike demons, have no concern about smashing a mirror, and around 10 on each wall must be broken to stop the power draining effect. They can also force their way out of the room with an extreme strength roll or picking the lock. If they break free of Mr. Lung's cabinet, driven by terror, he will attack them with a butcher's knife. If it hasn't been repelled at any point, Wu will try to get in on the act by trying to force its way in via the windows, and will bait Mr. Lung by pretending to be friendly but scratching or biting him if he gets close. Those wearing bast amulets will not be harmed by Wu unless they interfere with its plans. Once it tires of playing with Mr. Lung, it will adopt its demon form and try to dispatch him. There are a number of magical ways that they can help fight Wu listed here, as it is immune to physical weapons and natural damage. The conclusion of this sidetrack is that either Wu kills Mr. Lung, is driven away by the wards or investigators, or is defeated by them physically. If Wu kills Mr. Lung, it will vanish along with everything valuable in the apartment. If the investigators assist against Wu, then Mr. Lung will offer to perform their horoscopes for free by way of apology, which is a good opportunity to foreshadow events to come or prompt some missing clues. After this, we get the stats for Wu and Mr. Lung. The next section is called A Gentleman of Business. At this point in the campaign, Ho Fang should be a definite person of interest for the investigators, as his shipping containers are present at many points. He has a mansion, a warehouse and a yacht called the Luxuriant Goddess. His warehouse in Shanghai is a brick building on the north bank of the Wangpu River, with the right rolls determining that part of it is built on a wooden pier. It has a tiled roof and 5 sets of doors to allow access to the storage area, and the upper floor has offices that face the street. All of the windows are covered in iron grills that are very difficult to remove. The place is padlocked shut between 6 PM and 6 AM and has 6 guards patrolling it who are all expert martial artists and members of the cult of the bloated woman. It is open every day except Sunday, and around 30 Chinese men work there. Anybody captured by the cult will be held here for interrogation and then sacrificed to the bloated woman. The main warehouse is supported by rows of wooden pillars and contains heaps of normal things such as bagged rice, chests, tea, machine parts, hardwoods and the like, which makes it a difficult jumble to navigate. At night, the lights are turned off, making it even more difficult, with just one light on the table where the guards chat and gamble being left on. It is mapped out here. Ho Fang has an office here that is accessed by the stairs in the warehouse or the main street entrance. The upper floor holds nothing of interest and is businesslike. Any sharp-eyed investigators with the right roles may notice a part of the stairs that are weak and loose, marked A on the map, where they could hide. Ho Fang's office is full of navigation charts, including one of Grey Dragon Island, shipping guides, account books and the like. Tall filing cabinets are crammed with papers, and there is a safe here that, if opened, will yield a nice chunk of cash. Not much is of interest here other than ledgers showing that Ho Fang has shipped art objects and some books to the Penhu Foundation, Omar Al-Shakti and Arja Singh, with other notations mentioning mining equipment to Mortimer Wycroft and Randolph Shipping. Ho Fang also has a special storeroom where he keeps artefacts that are passing through his hands. This is accessible through the main warehouse and has a stout iron door and an excellent lock. Investigators who spot the weak spot marked A can get into this storeroom if they pry up the risers and remove the stair runner. There's also another way of getting in marked B on the map, an iron hatch that leads to the river. It can be opened easily from inside the room, but it is hard to open from the outside. There is also a hoist here to lower goods to the water. A number of artefacts are currently being held, including some statues of the bloated woman, a bronze gui, a ritual vessel used to prepare meals for the dead, that has carved hunting horrors as the handles, and there are dragon bones, which actually come from a bayaki and can be used to brew space mead. Anybody skilled in archaeology can determine that they are mostly ancient Chinese, though other pieces from different countries are also present. There are also 6 crates marked AP. These contain extra parts for Penhu's rocket. Many of the crates have addresses on them, and it does mention that the keeper can use these to lead on to other chapters. There's also a storage chest that holds voluminous black and yellow robes that the cult wear during their rituals. After this, we move on to Ho Fang's yacht, Luxuriant Goddess. This is a large, well-kept motorised junk which is kept moored near his warehouse. Ho Fang has acquired British registration for it, which stops it being inspected by the Chinese government. He uses it mostly for cult business. It is guarded by cultists while moored, and it won't contain anything mythos-related. Then we move on to the investigators actually meeting Ho Fang. If they decide to speak to him rather than breaking into his premises, his secretary will tell them that he is busy on that day, but can make an appointment for the following day. If their reasons don't seem adequate enough, she will have them followed until they come back. She is not a cultist, but is aware of her boss's shadier dealings, enough to keep on the lookout for him. It gives us some rules for chasing the person watching them through Shanghai streets, though the cultist won't know much and will tell them that their master is powerful and will bring retribution on their heads. Should they finally get to meet Ho Fang, they'll be shown to his office where he is sat amongst comfortable armchairs that have side tables to hold tea and ashtrays. He will rise and greet them warmly, chatting in a friendly manner about pretty much nothing over tea and cigarettes. He will come across as an incredibly cool customer who doesn't offer specific information even when asked a direct question. He will want to know what was so important that a letter would not have sufficed, and is intrigued by their questions. A hard persuade can convince him that their questions are above board. If, however, he is being made aware of their activities by cult members anywhere else, he will dispatch cultists every single night to kill them, and only leaving Shanghai prevents this. It gives some topics that the investigators may want to talk to Ho Fang about. Should they mention the destination of his shipment, he will hand-wave it away, saying he can have a clerk look up the files. If they ask about the contents of the shipment, for example, what they found on the Ivory Wind, things they can only know by breaking and entering, he will remain coy and claim he doesn't look too closely at the contents of the shipment, trusting his client to not do anything illegal, and will pretend to be shocked if it is mentioned that items were missing from the Ivory Wind's official manifest. Obviously, at this point, the investigators will have proven that they know too much and are now targets. If asked about the Carlisle expedition and matters of the cult, he will act astonished and claim to know nothing about these things, saying he has never had any dealings with Roger Carlisle, though these lies can be determined by the correct role. At this point, he will end the meeting, apologising for not being more helpful, and the investigators are marked from this point onwards. We then move on to Ho Fang's mansion. It is fully mapped out here. He lives in the French concession. The French gendarmerie is rife with cult members, so a blind eye is turned more often than not here. It has walls that are 13 foot high and topped with spear points, barbed wire and broken glass, as well as having strong gates. Getting inside could prove difficult. The mansion itself is constructed around 2 courts, an outer court that faces the main gate, and the inner court, which is surrounded by luxurious rooms. The rooms around the outer court are generally utilitarian in nature, being things like a storeroom, repair shop and the like, with just a few bits of furniture. It makes the point that Ho Fang does not share his wealth with his cultist followers, and these can be found around the compound. There are also poor quality mythos statuettes around the place. It does make the note that in one of the storerooms is a box containing 5 vials of poison called Essence of Thoughtful Resignation. More about that in a bit. The place is guarded by a doorman who has his own room. His job is to keep the riffraff away, though well-dressed people are admitted. They are brought through to the luxurious sitting room where they are watched through holes in the walls. There is a well-kept dining room which is appointed with fine porcelain that is very valuable, and also a library with around 4,000 books, some in English and most being scrolls in classical Chinese. If the investigators are lucky, Ho Fang has left one of the 6 mythos tomes he owns on the desk here, maybe even one of those that Carl Stamford has gifted him. Ho's bedroom is magnificent to behold, being laden with fine silks, handcrafted furniture and an enormous bed. There are also 3 white jade statuettes of Nyarlathotep in various forms hidden amongst the wealth on display here. Also detailed is Carl Stamford's room. Stamford is currently a guest of Ho Fang and could come as a surprise to investigators here, though Lin Yanyu could warn them of his presence. His room has a gate box and clear sight, though he wears the key around his neck. Opening it and stepping inside will instantly transport that person to wherever the twin box is kept. This is left down to the keeper. Stamford has brought it to facilitate a quick getaway should things in Shanghai get too hairy. The next room detailed is Ho Suci's, Ho Fang's only child. Having witnessed her mother's death during one of her father's obscene rituals, she has been driven permanently insane. She sits here humming to herself and only eats living things, mostly insects, spiders, slugs and the like. She can't distinguish between anyone except her father. She can be persuaded to ramble in a childlike manner about the awful things her father has done, which is unsettling in itself. Somebody trained in psychoanalysis can part the mist in her mind for a brief moment of clarity where she'll become terrified, wide-eyed, and beg the investigators to leave before her father finds them. If any roles are fumbled with her, she will scream for help. We then move on to the inner court. It looks normal at first, having lots of plant life, though a further inspection with the right skills will see that the plants are hallucinogenics and poisons, such as nightshade and peyote. There is a garden pool that contains poisonous blowfish and blue-veined Australian octopuses. Australian investigators will be able to identify these animals without a roll. There is a canopy on the pavilion that's a bronze statue of the Buddha. Examining the statue reveals a seam around the neck. The head on the statue can be turned, and if this is done twice, the whole thing slides out of the wall, revealing a dark passageway to Ho Fang's shrine. To either side of the passage are areas where he prepares poisons, and one has a cache of weapons, mostly firearms, even though the cult likes to use sickles. Ho Fang is a realist and knows they could prove useful. Incidentally, there is a small flower press here that is used to extract the fluids for the essence of thoughtful resignation. Scrapings from this could help in making the antidote for this poison. Moving through this passageway leads to Ho Fang's shrine to the bloated woman. It ends in a locked door covered by iron grillwork. The key is carried by Ho Fang at all times. Beyond the door there is a small room that has a statue of the bloated woman pictured here. There is a tall teak cabinet, and the most obvious thing is the glass coffin that currently holds Miss Choi. The ceiling of the room has a quite devious and bizarre trap. If it is sprung, the cover to the ceiling slides away, showing a pattern. A hard power roll needs to be passed, or it pulls the minds of the viewers into it. Their bodies stand there like puppets. If their body is subsequently moved or the pattern covered up, then their mind cannot be regained. Additionally, their mind comes under assault by all of the tortured and insane minds that are already trapped there. It is such an awful trap that a sand check needs to be made each round or some is lost, turning the victim insane and trapping them there to affect others forever. One positive thing is that if several investigators get trapped, they can link their minds together in order to support each other to get out. If they do this and one of them passes a hard power roll, then all of them break free. Sand loss remains on an individual basis. Anyone who breaks free brings back a piece of insight that is left to the keeper, be that a clue they've missed or the like. The statue of the bloated woman is 8 foot tall and 1,000 pounds in weight, and made from an alien bronze alloy. It is dressed in traditional Chinese clothing and is replete with tentacles and is sand draining. Bone fragments of incinerated sacrificial victims lie in front of it. It acts as a reservoir for magic points, regaining 2 per day and storing 40. It absorbs the magic points of the sacrifices it receives. Ho Fang can tap into the magic while touching it. It is immune to physical damage, though appropriate spells can harm it. The cabinet is of Chinese design and has hammered gold doors, carved with strange creatures and alien languages. It can be forced open, though it has a needle trap for this instance. The needle is coated with the essence of thoughtful resignation and is renewed daily. It causes damage as well as blindness that remains until treated or D6 minutes if an extreme con roll is passed. Once bypassed, the contents can be revealed. It has 6 books and a number of Chinese scrolls that record various monumental occasions in the order of the bloated woman. They detail a number of natural disasters, with the final entry talking about pale vipers' plan to burn the sky, all detailed in these handouts. In addition to this, there are 6 other books: The Goddess of the Black Fan, Commentaries on the Relay Text, The Tale of Priest Quan in Chinese, Livet Yvon in French, True Magic in English, and the Necronomicon in Latin. Anyone having a look will see that the first 2 books are inscribed with a dedication from Carl Stanford, as he has given them to Ho Fang as gifts. The cabinet also contains black and yellow silk robes, tattoo needles, black and yellow dye, and a jar of a substance called chuk. It is a powerful hallucinogen that amplifies the senses and makes pain overwhelming. In the floor of the shrine is a wide circle with the order's characters inlaid in gold. The coffin-like box has a movable cage on top that holds 2 starving Shanghai river rats. The woman is Choi Mei Ling, Jack Brady's girlfriend, and she is semi-naked. The box is divided into 7 compartments with yoke-like separators that keep her immobile. She is tortured by the rats being dropped into a compartment to chew on her. Ho Fang does not want her to die quickly, but to suffer while she is questioned about Jack Brady and the location of the 7 cryptical books of Hassan. Carl Stanford is personally overseeing her torture. She is hanging on to the last shreds of her sanity, and she is aware that Carl Stanford will kill her once she says what she knows and has made the decision to die rather than help him. If the investigators try to rescue her, she is almost catatonic, but just good enough to get to safety. If they can convince her that they mean her no harm and are on her side, she can tell them where Brady is hiding, at Musien's house in the old city. Incidentally, if anyone is bitten by the rats, they can easily catch a virulent disease. The next section goes into the Dark Mistress. The players can find out about this right back in America and also from Jack Brady. The photo they may have found shows a portion of the boat and belongs to Sir Aubrey Penhew. If the players pass a luck roll, then it is currently moored in Shanghai. It never stays here for more than a few hours, arriving at dusk and leaving at midnight, and will load cargoes at a discreet distance from Ho Fang's warehouse. If the yacht is not observed, they can find out this information from the harbour master's office or from people on the waterfront. Should the investigators check, they can find out that Ho Fang's warehouse occasionally sends letters to an Alfred Penhurst, an identity that, should they have met Jack Brady, they would probably have figured out is Sir Aubrey Penhew. The Dark Mistress is captained by Jack Savoyard, a member of the Order, along with 6 human Deep One hybrids. Anyone who sees Savoyard with skills in medicine can tell that he is suffering from radiation poisoning. The ship itself is a 90-foot, well-made yacht of British registry and of 19th century architecture, though the yacht has been refitted and internally strengthened. Her power now comes from a recovered meteorite that can move at a rate of 45 knots. Should they manage to sneak aboard the boat and have a look round, they can find it is dressed in dark mahogany and yew. They can find storage lockers as well as normal rooms you would find on a luxury yacht. Other than anything picked up from Ho Fang and the meteorite power supply, it's fairly normal. So after this we move on to the power supply itself, or as it is labelled, the deadly thing in the firebox. If the investigators figure out that Savoyard has radiation poisoning, they may be looking out for the cause of it. It is a chunk of glowing green stone that is in the firebox of the engine room, covered in burning coal to ward off inspectors. It has an alien heat so powerful that it pushes the steam pressure way beyond normal, which would explain the redesign of the yacht. The engine room has been shielded by lead painted black to look like iron. If the firebox stays closed, then nobody can get hurt. Anyone looking into the firebox will see the green glow, and anyone within 20 feet is exposed to its radiation, requiring a con roll. Those who fail feel the effects of it after 4 hours, getting nauseous, headaches, a slight fever and weakening them. If they then fail a second con roll, they start feeling confused, meaning a penalty die on all int tests. This lasts for 12 hours, after which everything starts returning to normal. Each time they are exposed to the meteorite, a con roll is required. If this fails, the effects are felt for double the length of time each time. If 3 of the initial con rolls have failed, then the poisoning becomes permanent, causing the development of red and purple skin blotches, hair loss, bleeding and infection, weakness, confusion, nausea, and a loss of 10 points of strength and con per week, as well as hit point loss, which reduces build and movement. When their hit points reach 0, they die. Only daily blood transfusions and hospitalisation will prolong their life. Magical healing may cure the investigator, though that is up to the keeper. Okay, finally we move on to Shanghai Museum. The most likely reason for visiting here is at the behest of either Anthony Chang at the Shanghai Courier or Choi Mei Ling if she is rescued from Ho Fang. It was located in the Wangpu district on the border of the international settlement and the French concession. It is a superb example of colonial architecture replete with a clock tower. It has a collection of Chinese pottery, screens, statuary and scrolls, and it is generally a good place for research. The investigators can receive help there from Mr. Mao, who is an assistant to the curator of the museum and can provide contacts that can perform translations, valuations and give them information as required for the right payment, and he can provide a letter of introduction to help them in their approach. It will take him a few days to compile a list and will contain 34 names. 6 of these people are authorities on Chinese occultism. 3 of them are in the city. An old scholar called Mr. Chang Ning, a wealthy aesthete called Madame Lin Yanyu, and Mr. Mu Xian, the museum's former curator. Madame Lin Yanyu and Mr. Mu Xian are detailed in the next section. Mr. Chang Ning lives not far from the museum and is happy to help any callers. If he is asked about the Order of the Bloated Woman, he will tell the investigators that it was once one of the most dreaded secret societies in China that praised the Dark God and was said to be worshipped by the Fakian pirates that plumbed the coast, and that those in the Dark God's service wielded dread magic, though it supposedly died out over time, and he doubts it has had a resurgence. Okay, that concludes part 2 of the China chapter. The next part will be part 3, where I'll be covering Madame Swallow, Mr. Mu, New China, and the chapter that is most often the campaign finale, Grey Dragon Island.